which we're talking about today, of intentional travel, is a really important one because it has to do with choice. As most of you know, choice and choices is a very close to my heart, and I think close to all of our hearts on this one. And in the past couple of months, I've been very, very fortunate to travel to a few places, and the last was just Scotland, as I just mentioned a moment ago before we got on the call. And I was in Scotland, and before that, I was in Greece, and it's a couple in other places. But there's something that really hit me. It came as a theme, and the theme is traces. And it's the traces of time, the traces that we leave as Homo sapiens, the traces we can read in our built environment, and the traces we see in the nature around us. If I think of Greece, I was really taken by the walls, some of which had been there for quite literally thousands of years, across the countryside and the small island of Syros, and could see the old wall and then a slightly less old wall, which kind of went across it, then a newer wall, which created terraces. And each one of those stones, for each and every one of those rocks, was put in place by a human hand. There was no drone, there was no animal that could lift the stone. So here we're looking at hundreds and hundreds of thousands of stones that humans had put into place to mark a territory, to mark a place. And then Raven and I went for a walk, and we walked up to one of those walls, one of those places where they crossed, and there was a gate, but the gate was made out of two huge stones with some various generations of things that you could open to get there. You could see some thrown to the side, and it's made me think a lot about the intention of those walls to mark a border, to hold animals in, to keep predators at bay. Probably not. But just why? And the walls which we see today, now today, with the villas and everything being built in our moment in time, those walls have become almost meaningless. And then just terraces being built, villas being thrown on them, and different traces being made. And I found that interesting because in last week, or a few days ago in Scotland, I could see the traces on the countryside, on the hillsides of forests and the highlands, and those beautiful country. I've forgotten how beautiful the highlands are. And these forests, which were and which are, and land, a landscape, and forests which have been cut and grown for generations, providing timber, shelter, clothing for thousands of years in the highlands. And again, this sort of traces. And then the last little instance, in walking through some of the villages up there, you're seeing the for rent signs or to let signs, the traces of humanity, both the old houses, the new houses, the evolution of these places themselves into what they are today or what they're not. And then there's a one thing I saw, there's a little sign up against the wall, a little yellow and sort of script from, seemed like 200 years ago. It said, police laws enforced here. I'm thinking, oh, what's the story behind this old sign that's just there on the corner of a street? And so as we move into the summertime, as we begin our travels, is to think, what are the traces or what are the things we're going to see, to explore, to find, to discover, and how important it is for us to be open to pausing, to listening, to sitting still, to smelling, to just looking at different scales, large and small, and what that tells us. And I know that you appreciate this. This is why you're here, but also for us to take that with us as we move into the summer season of most of us traveling different parts of the world. And I think that's a big part for me in to thinking of the intention of our travels, be it family, be it learning, love, exploration, and to go with that. So I wanted to just start with that and sort of we say in the good old British part of the world, a starter for 10. Not quite sure where that comes from, but we'll go with that. And to maybe ask you, when you think of intentional travel or the places you're going, what do you think about? And Charlie, you've just taken a swig of probably some coffee or tea, so you're ready to go. And what do you think?
As I've traveled more, I think there's an appreciation for traveling where the intent is to not have intention,
Hmm.
to find yourself
Mm-hmm.
lost in a new place,
Mm-hmm.
and in being lost, finding things.
Yeah.
Um, Now, even there, when I'm lost, I am usually on foot. This is Munich 2 weeks ago, uh, trying to find two or three uh, recommended bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a as I wander. Um, I think there's something else in what you said, the importance of and how we discover and find things in museums.
Hmm.
So, a museum's ability to keep these traces so they are not
Hmm.
forgotten, and then allow us
Interesting.
to visit these traces
Hmm.
and relive. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm. That's interesting. I went to the Acropolis Museum in Athens, and there's some wonderful reconstructions of the time over the epochs. And it was a very colorful affair. It wasn't the white marble, which is
right.
assumed. Very colorful, very beautiful, full of life, full of statues and celebration. And it's such a very different place, But it's here. It's
It's
great.
for whatever reason, you speak of this intention. I was particularly moved unexpectedly, and that's the things that you find that you don't expect to find. Um, by at the north end, and I'm not going to remember the name of the park, but I first observed it on the map. I was like, that's an unusual looking neighborhood because it wasn't colored in Google Maps as if it was a park. As I walked past it, it was just big open grassy fields with roads in between these grassy areas. So what is this? Would later learn that's where they set up the temporary Bavarian beer halls for Oktoberfest.
Ah,
So there
oh,
was a
that's great.
trace, but I could not interpret what this trace was.
That's great.
I didn't have a
Uh,
framework. But then on my last
yeah.
night there, had walked from, and I learned that each little kind of neighborhood has their own, year-round beer hall. But I was walking to a train stop and walked past the north end of this area, and they had a very powerful um, art installation of black silhouettes and light around the silhouettes, and it was a memorial to um, a bombing there in the 80s. But from
Mm,
a
mm,
distance, you could just see this unusual cluster of lights. I'm like, what is this?
mm,
Doesn't appear to be
mm,
anything I've seen before. Um,
mm.
but there they left a trace, and the power of the emotion was that the trace was what was missing. You
Yeah,
had the
yeah,
silhouette of the
sure,
people, but not the people themselves. Um,
sure. Beautiful. Awful and beautiful. Yeah, very full. Thank you. Stan, what about you?
It's quite funny you talk about traces and traveling. I didn't travel much last week because I've been working on the house, but I was actually digging in my garden, planting some wine plants, um, so I can start doing my own wine, some grapes. I'll grow a big hedge of grapes. And I was digging in the soil, and then suddenly I found something which I found unusual, and it's like this little thing.
Oh, look at that. Sure. Yeah.
It says the SRB, which is the
Mm.
Schweizer Radfahrtverein Bund. I found it on the internet. It's a medal. It's just about 100 years, no more than 100 years old. It's from 1900. It's supposed to be gold also, but the gold has gone off. But then I realized, it's like, what does a thing like this to do with bicycles leave a trace in my garden where you can't even cycle at all? And I like
Huh.
cycling myself, and I've been cycling in the area. And I like the fact that, digging in the garden means that you're actually moving, but very slow into the soil. So you really start exploring every little inch. And I like the difference between crawling in the garden, walking, cycling, or going on a car or a plane. You have different perceptions of how the landscape moves and intensities
Mm,
of what you find. And
mm,
to find these objects, you need
mm.
a very much. I mean, on a bicycle, I would never find these objects. If I walk, I would probably not find them. If I
Sure.
crawl, then I start finding these kind of objects. So it's about.
Yeah.
I like the matter of scale that sort of takes place
Mm,
when finding traces.
mm.
So, yeah.
That's really cool. And also, it's your digging, digging in place and looking through,
Yeah.
excavating those layers. This
You
is what,
dig down in time.
yeah, you're digging down in time, and which I hadn't realized. And here I've been going to cities forever and ever and ever. I didn't realize that in the ancient cities, when they wanted to build something new, they just pushed everything over, or most everything over. They'd save a few
Really.
things, and then
hmm
they just build it up on top.
Yeah.
'Cause I could never figure out in my head why, in like the streets of London, some things were buried so deep, or in Greece and Athens. Why were they so deep? Like, did like dirt come out of the sky? Like, I was with this archaeologist. He's like looking like, "Duh, no, they just put the houses over and they built on top of them. That's the easiest thing to do. Like, because you have slaves, and the slaves go get you more stone, and it's. And this is
Yeah,
where, but this
or
is
reusing materials. That's another interesting thing I find in cities,
yeah,
where you're finding parts which have been used again and again and again. So yeah, lots of rubble get used to fill in, but there's
yeah,
some valuable materials which gets reused again and again and again. And they start leaving traces as well, which I find fascinating. So
yeah,
yeah.
and to discover them, and that's the thing. I think it'd be both you two, and I think, as I said, everyone on the call. They're all we look for things like this, and how important it is. And also, I think is so fun is to imagine, as you did, is like to try to imagine what's the story here. How did this get here? Why did it get? Who was this? Who was part of this? What was a bicycle like at 1900? Bicycles were slightly different then, right?
A
But also,
bicycle repairsman was the ironmonger was was a
yeah,
different time.
yeah, right. It's so, and so to think back to the context of that moment, this is why
Mm.
looking at in Greece and all these walls is just crazy. Some of them were slightly chiseled, and most of them not. So now, what about you?
So I like
Intention.
Charlie, I liked what you said about the intention of not having intention. I think that's what I've been doing a lot more the last couple of years when I travel. But
Mm,
also everywhere I go seems to turn into a research project. Because like all of you guys, you find something and I'm like, why? What about this? What did these people, how did they live? How did that thing get there? Whatever the question is. And the pro and con of having these things in our pockets is
mm,
I can find the answer, so I end up sitting there. And I mean, I'm finding it really useful. It's been really interesting the last couple of years because I've been traveling completely different.
Mm.
Last year I did.
No, I just prefer to ponder. We should be a pair. I just am like, I wonder why that's that. And then I never look at the glowing box in my pocket.
It depends. Sometimes I don't, but I think it's really cool. So like last year we did a road trip through Greece, Turkey for 3 weeks. And it's just like, I don't know, it's completely mind-blowing if you haven't gone through Turkey.
Mm.
The whole intention was they recently found the oldest known civilization, or the whole, I don't know how they categorize this, but basically the oldest like city or community that was built was uncovered about 20 years ago, and it's in the far east end of Turkey. So this was the intention of my entire road trip. And on the way, I found a lot of other things, like all these other ancient civilizations, but like that one is just fascinating. We still don't know much about them. They've only uncovered, they think, like 5% of the entirety of this community. And it already has like 10 different buildings in it and things like that.
Didn't they leave a disc or anything for us to read?
Oh, haha.
Yeah.
Yeah, floppy disks down there, you know.
Yeah, copper with hieroglyphs, and it can
Well,
yeah.
I read about ancient Greece had computers. Obviously, they didn't look like these, but they were made out of metal, and they found them at the bottom of the sea. So maybe they left disks that fit in the old Greek computers.
Yes, well, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. Wait, Harris, are you still on there? Hello?
Yes,
Maybe.
yes. Can you hear me?
Good. I can hear you now, yes.
Yeah,
So what
yes.
about
I'm listening very carefully and I'm thinking. And I also spent some time in this very romantic mountain landscapes, and I try now to really observe and feel. And I remember also this exercise we had this first Euro 2040 in Lax with this gentleman who kind of taught us how to observe and be mindful in these, let's say, natural, especially natural settings. But I was thinking now, within 15 minutes, I had this tremendous change from uh, Hartbrücke, the most urban infrastructure heavy part of Zurich, and now back to my little corner here at the Limmat. But I was thinking that I spent a lot of time, like all of you, in these infrastructure heavy so-called non-places, stations, airports, bridges, highly urbanized, and let's say technical places. And I'm just thinking how to observe them and how be mindful of them. It's difficult, right? But is it then to observe the technology around you, the infrastructure, and or the people, or how to behave in these non-romantic places? I mean, I haven't found the answer myself yet, but that's my thinking.
Mm. That's great. I mean, just like you said, we meander between, I think all of us here on this call as well, meander between the urban, suburban, rural, mountain, and how we can find home in each one of those places or find peace in each one of those, right? That's the I find so fascinating as to what we can see and take from each one, whether it's a little bee or a fly inside of an iris, after rain and a dewdrop, like these gardens last week, all the way to when you fly in, you see these urban structures, right? Trying to figure out how everything works or doesn't work. And that's what different scales, different times, different places, different people. I often also wonder like, and then Kenny, you're up next, huh? And then I often wonder, like, what were they thinking about? What were they thinking about when they put those stones on those walls, right? Was it purely for that moment? Or are they really thinking about generationals? Because in the past, you usually build things not just for yourself, but you build things for generations. That was an investment. It wasn't just a making, it was an investment of your life's energy into this. Today, we've kind of flipped a lot of that. Kenny, what about you?
Traveling. Okay, on my side is quite particular because since I speak different language and come from different cultures, so I always looking for place that's really I don't speak the language at all to feel that I'm traveling.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, so let's say half of Europe cannot go. I don't feel that I'm traveling. I just feel like I'm just step out of my house if I understand the
that,
language.
that's
So
interesting. Huh.
yes. And lately,
Mm,
I really love to do
mm,
something that we call grocery store tourism.
mhm,
So you just jump into grocery store of different culture in your city and traveling
mhm,
from there. And I just noticed that's how you learn from culture from other country. So, for example, if you
mhm,
go in an Asian store, you really feel that it's like you are jumping to Asian. And if you go in a South American store, you understand what is the most important for them in the culture to live. And if you go to
mm,
French, since I live in Basel, and you go in grocery store, you notice
mm.
that the cheese department is bigger than
It's
everything you
huge.
have.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And you feel this culture. And when you go in Germany, you feel that the sausage
Mm,
um, place, it's
mm.
the most important in the culture. So this it's
That's really
um
cool. I've never thought of doing that. That's really cool, Kitty. I love
yeah.
that. Because you can travel without having to go too far.
Yes, but also when you're traveling, if you, I always love to jump in a grocery store, even like for my last travel in Croatia, I just jump in grocery
Hmm.
store
Yeah,
because yeah, and you see, notice that what is the most important to culture because also it's not a store that they have to perform, so it's really authentic, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I hear you. I love going to hardware stores, not just general stores, but like I love going to hardware stores in different parts of the world. Anytime I'm someplace, I try to see a hardware store, and I just to see what, like, even just look at the scissors. Right? Like the scissors in Hong Kong were just totally different than the scissors in London. Made differently, cost different. And you go to the scissors department in, like, I don't know, Home Depot. It's like 27 different scissors. And so that's really great. I love that. Kenny? Do you have any big travels planned this summer?
No, not yet. I would love to go to
Yeah,
Greece, but nothing planned yet.
yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, if you do go to Greece, let me know. I can give you a few ideas. Had
Yes.
a wonderful tour guide who was an archaeologist. This is
Thank
an
you.
archaeologist. This is so cool, I have to say. He's a friend of a friend, and he's an archaeologist who actually does digs in Rome. He's lived in Rome for 30 years. He's working on um, Hadrian's Villa, part of Hadrian's Villa, the grounds. And so he's doing this right now. And he's like, yeah, come to the dig. I'm like, it's like, you serious? I mean, I could come and just, you know, use a little spoon and scrape some dirt on your dig in Hadrian's Villa in Rome. And he's like, yeah, it's in October. You come down in October. I'll be there. I'm doing 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks there. I'm working on this one part. I'm like, okay, I think this could be cool. We could do a 2040 trip to Rome. Who wants to go work on a dig? Like, yeah, talk about traces of time. But he was quite interesting. And did you know in Greece, the senators were elected for 1 month?
In
Right?
ancient, not modern.
In ancient Greece, there were 50,000 citizens. They were only men and who had to have landholders. It's talked about as the oldest democracy, but pseudo. And you were elected. You didn't really have a choice, and you had served for 1 month. when they just called an election when they had stuff they had to solve. At least that's, like, there's no career politicians except for the military and the treasury. Right? There's only two, at least that's what, my archaeologist guys explained to me. I have to fact check that. But I was just thinking to myself, in our modern world with our career politicians who start when they're 12, how much better this could be if we just had politicians in there for a month. It's like, oh, I think it'd be awesome. Come on, Anyway, other travels this summer. Kenny's going to go to Greece. Anyone else got something planned? Stin, you're probably staying at home until something comes up.
Yeah, probably travel to the garden of the neighbors, I guess.
There you go. Hey, you know, yeah, maybe you could do a little dig over there.
You
Yeah.
never know where you find it.
It's so
Crazy
true.
stuff.
So true.
No plans. Yeah, I'll probably go to some concerts with some friends, but it's in the Netherlands or so. It's a bit forward between the Netherlands and Switzerland. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mhm.
Intention of seeing friends, keeping friendships alive, important. What about you, Charlie? Our world traveler, you're a resident world traveler here.
Headed to New York City next week with 21-year-old daughter who wanted to go see Ragtime. It had been extended a couple of times, and so traces of music, and Ragtime was foundational for jazz. So I'm optimistic because I sense in her spirit that eventually she will enjoy playing jazz the most. She's come through a classical background and is not ready to let herself go from the
rigors,
the constraints of classical interpretation, but she's on the way. So anyway, looking forward to that.
That'd be fun.
Yes. New York, I don't know if it's made it international news, but the city has had some pretty crazy celebrations as the Knicks basketball team has had some success. That it's been since 1994 that they were, at this place. So anyway, there's a chance we'll be there and they could win the championship game 6. So a lot of speculation about what will happen to the city. There's memes and jokes about they're gonna steal the Statue of Liberty. They're gonna yeah, but anyway, should be a good trip. And the Met Museum there is one of my favorite spots to
absolutely
just go and get lost.
Just be no, I totally hear you.
What part of the city are you staying in, Charlie?
This time because we're doing another show Monday night with an artist I should know and I don't. So we're right off Times Square. And then have some planned stops. And this is a rabbit hole you can go down. There's one post about 89 of the best vintage shops in New York City. So Lucy's always collected vintage clothes. So we're going to do the fashion district for at least a day. And we've not yet done that. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Whitney, the one on the High Line?
I have not. Yes. Yeah. Usually when I was coming in, I tell people this, there's also, I had this other thought about traces. To me, it's also very, there's a lot of reflection about the traces of relationships and conversations in a place.
Yeah.
So for me, I recovered from COVID, not the disease, but the social disease, COVID, in New York City. Flying into the city, staying in the city, taking a train to Rahway, New Jersey, riding with what I called the Penn Station posse. 3 project engineers and a PM that wanted to live in New York City had all moved from California intentionally to live in the city and work in the city. But I saw the world come back there as the normal rhythms of life returned. The train began to be more full. The masks left us, and anyway, so I have that the traces of those friendships and conversations as a memory.
That's cool. I mean, that's really interesting that you bring that up. So there's traces of personal relationships and the memories that go with that, either fabricated or forgotten or suppressed, or how these traces go with us too, and the conversations that are had or not had.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. I
Like
was
Chris,
in
I may
Oma.
always
Yeah.
remember the look on your face sitting in Zurich. Was it 3 weeks ago now?
Mm.
As it registered with you that I had said out loud that I only have one 25-minute meeting that's required on my calendar every week.
I know. I'm like, what? And you're a salaried man. You got one meeting a week. You're like, holy cow, Charlie Dunn. Dude, you're like a god, a corporate god to be able to do that. Yeah. I have
But
more.
I think there's a connection there if we pull this thread on this intentional lack of intentionality,
Mhm.
so that I'm free to wander or focus attention as
Mhm.
as we engage with teams. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I've observed about travel is that people with a rigorous agenda may often miss things because of their agenda.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to the intention. Why we're doing what we're doing. And I think of my, years at Arup and all the places I went, to all the places I visited, hundreds and hundreds of places I never saw. Right. I was there, but I didn't see those places, many of them.
Right.
Yeah. I had stories to tell about each one of them, but can I really, really tell you about Ghana? Not really. Can I really tell you about Burma, Tanzania? Yeah, I can tell you got a couple stories, but to really be there, it's like going into one of those Kinney's stores and actually looking at all the shelves. I mean, actually, seriously, where you actually go in and you take the time to see what's there. Don't just go in and smell it and turn around, but you look and you hold it and you look at it. You say, and you make the time to absorb and to let it sink in. And so that's the intention, right? To let it sink in. And I think that's what I think a lot of that's been lost in our contemporary society. Just taking that time, as you said, it's like getting bored. Say creativity is when your mind's bored. When we're always active, 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 you don't have the time to let your subconscious work for you. And I think that's also.
Yeah, we use this phrase, and it just occurs to me that this is impossible without time, blocks of time, but to observe without judgment. If you're observing with needing an outcome or needing to find a solution, that's time bound, and that invariably involves jumping to judgment. But the ability to observe without judgment and allow space to appreciate and understand. And I think that's I say that for project teams, but the same should absolutely be said for cultures, to observe a culture without judgment.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I was talking. Yeah, I totally. And sometimes it's hard to do. Right. Sometimes it's really hard to do.
There's a Dutch word for that called niksen. It's the intentional act of doing nothing. I've done that with my students, and it's very difficult. I mean, they're not used to that. But I made a whole planning, full lessons, and I said one afternoon, we're not going to do anything, but it's really like wander around, let your mind, don't judge, deliberately do nothing, and that's the act of niksen. It's very interesting for them to do so, and then they realize that ideas don't come if you don't give your brain that sort of pause as well. Things start to connect. That's another thing. It's not even boredom and creativity. It's also about giving time to connect things. Really helps. Yeah.
That would be a fascinating
Yeah.
topic. The inner space or the traces of ideas. Um,
Mhm.
there's someone who's been quite influential for me who talks about, and I'll ask the question, close your eyes and think about where you are when you have your best ideas.
Mhm.
And then
That's
you
a good
open your eyes
question.
and
Mm.
everyone realizes it's never at work.
No. I sort of, I think with me it's mostly when I wake up, but not when I wake up. I have to wake up and I have to be sort of semi-awake, and then things start
Mm.
together. But to be honest, the best ideas are things I put on the shelves and don't do anything with them. Let them ripen. An idea has to ripen
Yeah.
almost, and then I'll take them off the shelf after even a year, and then I continue with the project.
Hmm.
The
Mm.
only downside is if the project is very difficult, I need time to get into it again.
Mhm.
That's the downside of
Mm.
ripened projects. Yeah.
Mm. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Because I find, Janelle, where do you get your best ideas? I like that question that Charlie just asked. So Steve
Mine's
gets it. Yours is walking.
but this, yeah, and back to our little tool. This has made it a lot easier to keep records because in the past, it's hard to write and walk and things like this. So Charlie, like you, when I used to work at Air I'd have most of my phone calls I'd try to walk on. We also didn't have video calls yet, so people didn't notice
Hmm.
unless you heard a siren or something.
Hmm.
But I'm like, calls
Hmm.
were so much better and just like more engaging, more idea driven.
Mm.
That's why I used to
Interesting.
dance at my desk. I used to get in trouble because we had sit stand desks and I'd like sit there and like bop back and forth listening to music because it sort of replicates the idea of walking.
Yeah. Well, yes, she would dance at her desk. In the middle of the big room, she'd be there with her big headphones dancing. We're all kind of going, up, Janelle's at it again.
It was only a problem when I started singing.
Yep, then it got problematic. Exactly. That was Kenny, what about you? Where do you get your good ideas?
So I would say walking or when I'm doing boring thing, like
Hmm.
mending clothes.
Oh, okay. Yep. So your hands are busy, but your brain is in automatic in a way. Yeah.
Yes, that I
Hmm.
can just flow away or those things.
Hmm. Hmm. Harris, what about you? If you're still there, I think. Harris, are you there?
Yes, yes, of course, of course.
No, of
That's
course,
why
I
now
don't
I
see you.
listen to Kinney. I realize that's why sometimes when I most have these big dilemmas, I'm aggressive with my laundry, with folding clothes, with ironing.
Mm, mm,
That's true.
mm,
But also ideas come in the. I mean, I had a couple of ideas I was sort of dreaming of, and then I woke up and I tried to write them down before I forget them, or
mm, mm,
I'm doing something where I'm really should not be distracted, but these ideas about something else come up. So
mm,
what I was trying throughout the years is to note it down or somehow to mark it. Otherwise, it's gone again. And then I try to
mm,
remember, and it's not possible. So
mm,
the ideas can come in the most unexpected places, or even in
mm,
some of these boring infrastructure that he is, forced to spend time in. So
mm.
it's about, I don't know. I also, it was an interesting point about ripening. Sometimes it needs
Ripening.
time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it
Hmm.
really needs to be executed immediately. So the right momentum is always a dilemma. But it was an
Mm,
interesting point about ripening.
mm. I like that too. Thank you. And for me, I do like three places, and it depends. It's sort of, I think it's been in phases because in the past, I think 10 years, I've been so busy. I haven't given myself the space and place to really have the ideas I used to do. I used to be with my sketchbook and a glass or two of red wine and just doodling and writing and just and until my hand and my brain would somehow find a resonance and then ideas would come. The second place for me is really up sitting in big nature with a beautiful vista, and being able just to be calm and looking out, letting my mind wander about. And very often those ideas had to do with place, big, like the big ideas. Okay, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Sort of trying to, I guess, sort of the different types of ideas. And I think the third was like, I think with like as many of you was walking, or so I see something like, oh, that's kind of like relational. And all of a sudden it's like, ding, there's a light bulb which happens. But I don't, and I think for me, like Kenny, for me, sketching was sort of like my knitting. It's where it's just something, your hand and your brain are connected. And I think that for me, a very powerful way. But all those, it's really nice. And I find now that I'm tired, I have to make more time to not get busy, to do Charlie's meandering, intentionally intentionless, and to have some of those ideas like Stin, which I've had on the shelf to pull down, to ripening, to get those in place, to get those going. And so I have to kind of work on. So this has been fantastic for guys. Janelle, we're coming up to close to the top of the hour. They've gone by, I can't believe it's gone by so fast. I've got dinner waiting, and not waiting. I've got to go to have dinner here in about 10 minutes. And this has been great. I kind of like this this small format, especially with the 5 of us, 6 of us here. So I'm really grateful. One of the things our projects have been on, hasn't been on the shelf, but it's been marinating, and it is really ready to go. Janelle, what's behind door number 2?
One, thank you all for joining and trying.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could put on the headphones and dance while you do this, that image.
I don't have over-the-ear headphones anymore. So here's one of my favorite things to do. I still kind of dance when I walk on the street if I'm listening to music and I like it, and I love watching people's reactions.
Yeah.
Like most people will just smile. Like if the bus goes by, you could see the moment that they look at you and then they just smile. And then there's the grumpy people who will just be grumpy no matter what. And there's like, they get extra grumpy, but most people.
I was grumpy before then, yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Most people smile. It's really nice.
Yeah, nice.
But anyways, so we were trying out a new format today. So thank you for participating. And curious what you guys all think. But what Chris is saying, we're going to share. So I'll just put a link in here. I can send it to you later if you guys want it. But the last couple of years at our2040, we've been working on a new format, which I think if you guys didn't participate in, you probably heard us talk about. It's been called Envisioning Tomorrow, and we're looking at how do we create visions, stories, and action plans for places. We're kind of using places broadly. Some of the stuff we're talking about here, I don't know if it was which one of you mentioned this, but somebody said, places hold memory for us. Right. And I'm spending the summer somewhere I used to live. And I've had a lot of people come back and say, Janelle, you must be in a nostalgic era. And I'm like, maybe, I don't know yet. But, places hold memory. They also help us create the future. And, we get to shape that, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, my point was, we've been working on taking the process we've done the last 2 years, this combining foresight and maybe city planning lightly, I'd call it, like kind of visioning foresight and that into a product. And so I have just completed the first beta version of the platform. And so I put the link in here if anybody wants to poke around and give feedback or use it, or I don't know, it's mostly just for you to experience, but we're calling it a toolkit for right now, and it's called Envisioning Tomorrow. And yeah, Chris, what am I missing?
Well, you were going to share the winning lottery number for the Swiss Lotto, I thought.
What's it up to?
I'm not quite sure. Last time I looked, it was too many zeros for me to count.
Depends on how many zeros if I want to share the number or not.
Oh, Janelle, come on. Now be generous with our friends. No, I think that was it. I don't, do we have another call scheduled for the summer? We go, I think one more. Is that correct? None more?
Till August.
Okay. So, but we will probably have another get together before. We'll just kind of pop that into the community for those who are in Switzerland and Zurich. Great to see you. And then we do have Beyond the Visible coming up in the autumn from Outer Space, Inner Space. Looking very, very much forward to that. If you're interested, make sure you put your expression of interest in so you'll be the first to know about that. Got a few things we're changing due to logistics, from some timing and sizing due to availability of some spaces, but you'll hear more about that in due course. And I think that was anything. Kenny, was there anything else we were supposed to be sharing? I've got thumbs up. All right. Last word from everybody. I want one word as we go away, heading out into the summer. That's an intention. Give me one word. Charlie, one word for the summer.
Gamma state.
Gamma state. All right. That's
It's that
two words.
it's that wakening moment that we heard about. That's
Yeah.
the gamma state that the brain is in. So yes, yeah.
I love it. We're going to hyphenate it so it counts as one word. Gamma
Certainly.
state. There we go. Cool. Stin, what about one word for you going into the summer?
Yeah, it should be changes actually. Although I thought explore would be good, but change, I think that's the thing I'm going for.
Cool. Change. I hear you. I like that one. Harris, for you, one word going into the summer.
I want to that you also see me. Hello from nature, beautiful nature.
Woo-hoo!
The word is change is already mentioned. Evolution.
Evolution. I hear that. That's great. I love it. All right. Gamma state, change, evolution, and Kenny. One word.
Curiosity.
Reality.
Curiosity.
Curiosity. Yes. Beautiful. All right. Janelle, one word for the summer.
Dancing. I had to.
I love it. Dancing into the
Every
summer.
time you see me now.
There we go. And for me, my word is going to stay being gratitude. Gratitude that we're alive, gratitude that we wake up every day, that we have each other, and we're having a courageous future, which we're creating together. So for that, I'm extremely grateful and thank you. So with that, everybody, I wish you a fantastic rest of day and take care. I look forward to talking to you very, very soon, all of you. Cheers, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye. Bye bye.